Most people do think we are an agency. They look past the fact that we are an institute and go straight to social media. You know it all. So here I'm going to call you and I want you to do my social. That's usually the request, right? They have a marketing need, a social media management need, or they're hiring for positions. All of those I refer out to our community of certified strategists. So I gather some information from the folks that are looking. What are they looking for? What are the skills that they need? And then I go to my community of social strategists, our certified agencies, if there's appropriate, right? And I'll make those recommendations or referrals through that process. We also have a job board on our website that is there for our community of strategists who might be looking, but it is a nice resource for an agency who's hiring or a company who wants to bring someone in full time.
Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Garashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success, and in Season 4, focus on how we can give and receive referrals. Today, I have Jen Radke, the CEO of National Institute of Social Media, the first organization to dedicate itself to social media education and certification. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And where I want to start off is something that we actually have in common, which is an entrepreneurial grandfather. Alex, I think you do too, as your dad.
No, they just came over to the U.S. from Ukraine. I feel like that was a bit of an entrepreneurial journey in itself.
I think that's where we kind of have talked about it. Well, because my grandfather had a huge impact on me on becoming an entrepreneur as well. And I know you, and we'll talk about this in a second, but I know you weren't necessarily entrepreneurial, but I think you got a little bit from him that maybe helped you guide yourself that way. So can you kind of just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. My grandfather was always on to new things, and he had folders in his file cabinet labeled business ideas. And so every time he had a new business idea, it would go in this folder and he would share it with my dad or my uncle or myself as I got older. And so it was very fun to watch him not only go through the creative process of what could the world use that I could do and deliver and provide, but really get excited about how would I do this, right? How would I go about starting a new business, a new offering? It was a interesting dynamic, I guess, as a kid to grow up around.
No, I was the same. And honestly, that was one of the most entrepreneurial sentences I've ever heard is he had a book of ideas. Yes, I so relate to that. I have as Alex knows, I will just create an entire business plan and not touch it for the next 6 months just because I love that part of the process. And I have these ideas that I need to get every word out of my head. So sounds similar to him. And then I guess staying on the former days, did you have any little businesses or sell anything in the neighborhood that you did when you were a kid?
You know that I did, Josh. Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess when I was young, my family used to say I could sell ice to the Eskimos. But one of the things that I did, we lived in California when I was 6, 7, 8, that age. And one of the things that I did was I went door to door with my little red wagon and Carlson Craft stationery for Christmas cards. And so if anybody's ever gone to pick out wedding invitations, you've probably seen these massive books with sample cards in them. So you can pick kind of the paper type and the embossing and whatever. But Carlson Craft is the name of the company. They used to do that for Christmas cards. And so I'd go door to door to my neighbors and see what kind of Christmas cards they needed and sell them Christmas cards. So I'm sure it was something that originally was pushed by my father or grandfather, right? Hey, let's get you out of the house and do this thing to make some money and do whatever. But it was my first foray into sales and kind of doing my own business.
Well, that's kind of you did it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. What'd you say?
No, I was just saying, and you did it, even if it was oh, hey, you should do this. You actually did it and went door to door. I mean, I feel like that's the part that matters.
It was fun. And, it helped build really unique relationships with older people in the community too. So.
I used my little red wagon to run away twice from home, so I think your use case was a lot better than mine. And I think I never got past two houses down. I don't remember like why turning or whatever. Um,
You were just writing the business plan.
that's right.
And then decided to stop.
Mom and Dad, I'm done with this. I need to be independent. That was not what it was. It was probably some argument. Is there anything that you learned from those days that you take to today? I mean, I assume it's no, but might as well ask.
I it's been a long time. So I guess I can't tell you necessarily what I learned from those things. If anything, that I might be able to surmise the fact that I learned that I can try anything, right? And age doesn't necessarily limit us, whether that be young or old. We have the ability to do something unique, do something different, unexpected. And that's how I'm going to continue to live my life.
I think we'll get a little bit more into actually. Speaking of continuing how you live your life, did you at that point think you were going to run a business, like become entrepreneurial, or not necessarily?
No, that was never my dream. If I go way back, my dream was to be on stage somewhere performing. I knew as I got older that was not the thing that was going to happen, right? So my focus, kind of when I left high school and went on to college, really was to get a job, right? Get a job, be productive, work for the man or the woman or whoever, right? And just do the thing. Um, and I did that for 15 years before ending up taking kind of a path in this entrepreneurial space. I did small things, right? For 10, 12 years, I did a home-based business, sold creative memories products and stuff. So I had things like that I had done over the years, but I had never really envisioned myself being my own boss, employing other people, and really running organizations.
I'm going to interject there because part of your upbringing kind of positioned you for that. How many siblings did you have?
I'm the oldest of 8 when you include step and half and all of that. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's leadership right out of the gate.
It is. Yeah. My next oldest sister is 4 years younger than me. 4 years younger. Yeah. And there's a big gap right between us. And so I was definitely the leader, the mom figure, whatever they want to call it. I'm sure the pain in the butt, probably dictator in some cases. But it did. It led me towards a leadership role, right? Being able to understand how the big picture works and how all the people, all the pieces have to work together to get whatever accomplished.
Okay, then I'm actually skipping ahead a few questions because I think it's kind of related to what you were saying on. See, you said dictator, but I don't want to use that word for this next question. Because where I'm going with this is, you can talk about it if you want to, but something happens in your life that kind of took you away from the business.
Mhm.
And we talked about this last time that, that taught you a couple of things, and I'll throw it over to you, but it taught you what was maybe missing in the company, or how much you were involved in the company, and what maybe the company should look like, just in case. Or this is, a lot of times they say a sign of a good business is if you can take the CEO out and it still runs, like that's a good CEO, which sounds counterintuitive, but like I do believe that's the reality of the situation. So can you kind of just talk about like through that, it's up to you if you want to kind of say what happened, but how that impacted your business.
Yeah, sure. Um, Life always throws us curveballs, whether that be personal, work, that professional side. And in 2020, we all had a huge curveball, COVID, right? And COVID added its own challenges to the business. We, as an institute, we were down and unable to test for 4 months because we had no proctoring centers, right? Because nothing was open. It took us a while to get converted over to remote proctoring, because even our remote proctoring. But then for me personally, life hit in August of 2020, and my father was killed in a lawn tractor accident. And he was very young. He was 62. And all of a sudden, I was dealing with not only the loss of a very important figure in my life, but caring for my 94-year-old grandmother who lived in her own home, but needed support 3 hours away from my home and my family. in the middle of COVID, right? And so I started working 4 or 5 days a week from her house, making sure that she had what she needed, limiting interaction with outside world because we didn't have COVID vaccines or anything yet. The last thing I wanted to do was bring that to her, right?
Sure.
And so I wasn't fully present in the business. I couldn't be, right? Not only was I trying to work from home and doing all these things, but I was dealing with a lot of different mental stress and physical stress and grief all at the same time. And so as a leader, I learned how involved I was in the business, very involved in the business. I also learned how amazing my team is, right? So my team stepped up in ways that were absolutely unexpected, unnecessary in some ways, right? Like it wasn't their job role. It wasn't what they were getting paid to do. They just stepped up, they kept the wheels on the bus, and we kept moving forward in this really crazy, trying time. I learned that I could rely on them for things I had never relied on them for previously. They maybe learned, and I won't speak for them, they can speak for themselves, but they maybe learned that they had the capabilities to do different things than what they expected or what they were hired to do. And so there was a lot of kind of evolution for me as a leader, for sure, in, okay, I need to fix these things that require me to work, but I also need to really empower my team even more than I thought I was doing before, to try something new, to do something different, to take more of a leadership role because they can and they're good at it.
I appreciate you sharing that. I guess my follow-up question to that is, how would you implement or empower people properly prior to something happening that, now it's necessary?
Yeah, that's always a good question and a thought that the leadership should be doing. And most of us, especially entrepreneurs, if we're small businesses, right, we're so busy pushing the business forward that we don't necessarily spend a lot of time doing that, right? Um, I'm fortunate to be in a space that highlights and focuses in on professional development. So you would think that it would be inherent to me, right? Like a secondary nature, just to say, hey, we're going to push you outside your comfort zone today and learn something new. But it's not, because we just get into our routines and we get into the need to grow the business or to serve our clients or whatever the case may be. And so for me, what I recommend now and what we do now is really try to at least quarterly sit down and talk about, hey, what is something you want to learn? What is something you wish you could do more of? What is something you don't want to do so much of? Like, how can we streamline encouraging people to take on new tasks? This summer, we had an internship program, and this is just a little side example, but I've had a social media coordinator with us for 6 years. She started off as an intern 6 years ago. We hadn't done the internship program in 6 years. She was just doing great, right? And we got asked by some educational institution and partners in our community if we knew of any companies hiring interns. And I was like, yeah, I think I do. Let me see. And I was talking to Celeste, our social media coordinator, and she said, we could use interns. And I've never actually managed anyone before. And that would be a tool, right, that I could add into my professional toolkit. That would be pretty cool. So in the matter of 7 days, we created a job description, an internship program, and posted and started the process of hiring interns for the summer. And we brought on 4. They went under Celeste's leadership, and I mentored her as a leader of the internship program. But unless we're talking about these things, brainstorming ideas and being willing, kudos to her, right, for being willing to say, I would like to learn how to do that, to deal with people. We wouldn't have done it. And so it's just putting that, that openness, that freedom into the culture that says, let's brainstorm ideas. Don't be afraid to ask. And then I, as a leader, need to ask them too. Like, what do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? What do you want to learn?
Oh, Alex, I saw your eyes moving. I thought you had to.
Yeah, no, I have so much on that. I feel like, yeah, having the right environment for people to start thinking about the self-improvement and process improvement
Mhm.
of the organization that will then ultimately help them and then everyone else who's involved or associated with the company or the organization is huge. And I always come back to habits, and creating triggers around something. Like if something happened, let that trigger you to then say, I want to learn more about this, or I think we can use it in this way, or just say something. That way you can start. Just like Celeste, is it Celeste?
Yep. Mhm.
Said something about, yeah, I would like to do that. Now you have a full internship program. It's amazing. It's just that little spark. And I'm wondering, like, what was that trigger for her? And if that can be kind of harnessed and then be put into, can we attach that trigger to something we already do? And now, you know, there's a whole,
Yeah.
a whole environment for that to continuously happen.
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak to her trigger for sure. Um, but it came up in conversation, right? I think, and I strive, right, to be a very transparent leader. And so when we have questions like the one that was posed to me, hey, do we know of any internships? I let my team know. This is a question that came out. Here's how I'm thinking of moving forward. Let me know if you have any ideas or other connections or things I need to add to that, right? And it was just in that process where she felt comfortable enough to say, maybe we need to do one. And I would love to lead that. And so I think, hate to use that word, but I'm talking about myself in a positive way right now. So I'm going to try to be a little bit humble, but I've been told that as a leader, I'm easy to talk to, easy to come to.
Yeah.
And that I believe, right, really helped her say, I'd like to do this. And that is something that not every leader has. I know not every leader I've had in my life was easy to come to with new ideas and opportunities. And so I've really tried to create that here in our organization so that anyone can come. My door is always open, literal and theoretical, right? Like just come, tell me what you need. If I can help, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you, right? And
Yeah,
that's important.
that's what you actually took both the things that I was going to say. So thank you for making this job easier for me. I was going to say, I think Alex definitely always focuses on the trigger and the habits. And I think the second part to that is, can I actually use that, right? Like, do I feel comfortable with my leader or the boss or whatever it is to then bring it up? Like, so I think they work hand in hand. And sometimes we don't even think about the comfort side because it's just who that my leader is. So I think that was really important. Then thank you, because you knew I was going to ask you for an example, and you went right to it. So thank you for that. The other thing I want to just, before moving on to businessy stuff, anytime someone says the word stress or brings it up, I want to just double click and tap and learn a little bit more into that. You mentioned it was the story that kind of started this whole conversation about just handling stress. Do you have any ways of dealing with stress, handling stress?
I have been told I'm not the best at that.
Even better. Let's break it down.
Yeah, self-care. I know how valuable it is. And in fact, a member of our community, Robbie Schneider, just wrote, and as of Wednesday was published on Amazon, a new book called Social Media Sanity and You. Because this space, working in social media, digital marketing, which is constantly changing, but also has all of these people out there who think they can be anonymous, right? And just say whatever they want to anyone, regardless of accuracy and feelings and whatnot, adds to the stress level, right? So I understand the value of it. I know how important it is. Me as a business owner, though, I keep focused on, okay, but I got to do this, right? So it's being intentional. And so some of the things that I have to do is I have to intentionally shut off my devices at a certain time, right? None of my notifications come through after 10 o'clock at night, and they don't start until 7 o'clock in the morning. And that is a done thing, right? Even my children know that if there's an emergency, they need to call twice in 15 minutes for it to override the system, right? Like there's some backups, but I have to shut that off. I work remotely from a home office. I need to make sure that I'm not in my office 7 days a week, and all my waking hours. And so I really try to shut down at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, not come into the office on Saturdays and Sundays. There are always exceptions, right? I'll be traveling next week, so I might do a little work this weekend because of that travel, which happens to be personal. Yay, I get to go see my daughter. But but outside of that, I mean, those little strategies, when it's beautiful outside, which for Minnesota, where I'm located, is only a few months out of every year, I go have lunch on the patio, right? Like take that 30 minutes and eat my food, not at my desk, but outside, breathe the fresh air, get some sunlight, do that kind of stuff. Certain times I'll employ exercise, which I should do probably more, religiously than I do, but
Yeah.
get out for a walk, go to the gym. Those are all stress reliever things. I tend to be a hands-on crafty person, so I try to have something around the house that I can do that too. So it's all our own thing. It's making time though, and making it a habit, making it something you do every day or intensify when stress is intensified. There's times of the year that are more stressful and busy for us. Those are times I have to really be mindful about self-care.
I appreciate that. I think it's just, there's so many ways to handle it. And if, just to put a fake number on, if there's 10 ways to handle stress, eight, 7 or 8 of them is not going to work for each person. Like it's finding your one or two that works. And I think just asking this question and getting different opinions on it just gets more out there in the world, and hopefully someone can connect with it. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Now to talk a little bit more about the business, I suppose that's why we're here. We talked before this that I love all the personal stuff. So
It's all good. We get here because of who we are as people, right?
that's exactly. And again, I just like the hope, at least for on the listener side, is just like for someone to connect with something like, okay, they did it and I have these problems. Like, cool, I can use that. But your LinkedIn says you were initially the VP of business development and then eventually became the CEO. And I know you have a unique story there. So can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And I'll even back up just a slight bit and say, my career wasn't even in social media at first. My first career, the first 15 years, was in higher education, sales development, leadership. Loved it. Loved helping people reach their goals and selling an intangible product, which education is an intangible product. You can't hold it or touch it. It's all something we have in our brain, right? Is unique and fun because people are seeking knowledge and education for a wide variety of reasons. But I left that industry in 2012. Lots of reasons, but the company was shrinking. I didn't want to relocate. And I saw the writing on the wall, right? So it was time for me to go. And so I stepped away and I went on a quest to figure out what do I want to be when I grow up, right? Like, what do I want to do? What do women in Minnesota do for work? I had traveled about 80% of the time for the last 4 years within my organization, and I didn't feel like I was well connected to my community. And so I got introduced to the National Institute for Social Media through a friend and a real estate agent of mine who had gone to a Business Networking International or BNI meeting, and he met the founder, Eric Mills. And Eric was looking for someone to do business development, help build relationships between the Institute and colleges and universities. And of course, my friend thought of me, and I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that while I figure out what I want to do next. And so I did. So I chatted with Eric. I chatted with the investors that he had. And if I'm honest, I wasn't 100% sold right away, right? Like I was like, it's a cool idea, young kid, new thing, but is it really where I want to spend my time? I don't know if I want to go back to work right now, right? I was finishing up a master's program, spending time with my kids, doing things that I hadn't gotten to do in my corporate life. But they said the right things. They had an amazing vision, right, for how to help marketing professionals really level up. So I joined the organization right before it launched its first certification exam in June of 2012. And so that's how I started. I know you want to know what happened after that. So,
Yes. And then,
and then, so I did that for a while. I got certified as a strategist in 2014. I actually just renewed my certification. So, been certified for a decade. I got certified to teach because I was really missing that training component. So I started doing that, speaking at job seeker groups and training people how to use digital tools. And then there was a disagreement on how to move the company forward, right? The founder wanted to go one way, put some emphasis in there. I wanted to go a different way. And I knew it wasn't mine. And so I took the opportunity to step away. I started my own company called Socially Inspired, where I did social sales, training, and consulting, putting two things I love right together, right? So that was a blast. And then through a whole turn of events, it was brought to my attention that the company was needing leadership. Eric had decided to step away, was hoping to sell the company. And I was talking with a colleague of mine, and he said, "So should we buy it?" And I was like, "Well, why? Why would we do that? I don't know that we would do that. No, I don't think that sounds like a good idea." And he goes, "Come on, Jen. I mean, like, you believed in this thing at one point." I'm like, "I still do. I think it could be huge, but why would we want to do that?" And so he talked me into getting a market analysis done, see if the company was still a viable company, if the idea still had legs, and it did. So we made an offer. And in May of 2016, I took over as CEO. We purchased the organization from the founder. And then in January of 2019, I actually bought out that business partner. So just kind of moving forward, running the show now. So that's kind of my path.
wow, that's a journey.
Yeah, and we talk with a lot of founder CEOs, and that's not the case for everyone naturally.
Right.
So I always love diving into that. I guess the two questions that I have there is one, why did you initially not think it was a good idea? And then, and I can ask this again after, but like, what was the M&A experience like?
So my initial reaction came hesitation, I think, from two factors. One was probably mostly fear, right? That imposter syndrome. How could I do that? Like, that's taking on a big company, not just my own little training and consulting thing over here. That seems big and scary. And do I want to do that? The other was because of some of the ways that the company had been running, it hadn't been the most positive experience for some of its recent students. And so I was afraid that the brand had perhaps taken a hit harder than what I was willing to try to recover. And so there were two pieces there. The market analysis showed that that was not the case, right? That the company had had some bad experiences. And yes, people went online and said horrible things about it.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, there was a really great community of professionals who wanted this and needed this certification and support. And so that kind of turned it around. I think the second part you asked about was M&A experience. That was unique too. And I'm sure that each of them are, right?
Sure.
You've got to find a lawyer, one that you trust that actually knows what you're talking about. That is probably the biggest and first hurdle. I was fortunate.
Real quick, just
Yep.
M&A mergers and acquisitions. Sorry, just wanted to
Yes. Yeah, mergers and acquisitions, absolutely. I was fortunate. The business partner I went into business with, Shannon, he knew of a business lawyer, and so he had used him through different M&A purchases before. So that's who we used. I also learned very quickly what to do on my own because lawyers will charge you by the 15-minute increments.
Yep.
So that can get really expensive really fast.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of negotiation back and forth, and outlining pieces of the process that I didn't necessarily expect or maybe just hadn't thought of, right? Like, once you go through purchasing an agreement, you still need to put in your own company bylaws and figure out like, well, what happens to the company if you die? Who gets it next? What is the legal process for that? Or if you decide to leave and your partner wants to keep it, how does that transition process look? And, there's just so many little things. But all in all, it was fairly painless. We did have a few moments right at the end when we were getting closing done where one of the lawyers decided to try to earn more of his paycheck, I guess, and brought up a point of contention that neither the seller nor the buyers were worried about. So we had to kind of squash that and move forward. But all in all, fairly painless. Just a lot of tedious things to think about.
I like how you just ended that with fairly that sounded like not complicated, but a lot. But I think you're just saying this is just the stuff you have to go through. Like,
yeah,
you have to do it. So no, I think that was actually very valuable. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, now let's dive into the firm, at least like today's version of the firm. So National Institute of Social Media. Because again, a lot of our goal with the podcast is to build referrals among our guests and promote collaboration and support. So just to ask, some questions directly about the business, what services do you guys provide?
Yep. So our main focus is to help marketing professionals, specifically those who work in social media, to level up their skills through an industry credential or certification. So they take a test, they prove their expertise on social media strategy. So not tactical applications of how do you post on Facebook, but really how do you create a strategic plan, including social media, implement and manage that for an organization. So that's our main thing. In addition to that, we have preparation materials at a variety of levels, depending on how you learn, right? What your experience level is, how you're entering. So everything from here's a textbook, go ahead and read the content and take the test, to a full 6-week class led with an instructor done in a cohort model to really walk through each of those things. And then a few years ago, we added continuing education to our list of offerings. We at first really wanted our strategists to go out and learn platform stuff as part of their continuing ed from the platforms. And we heard that that's great, but there's still so much strategy and so much kind of unique application of different tools and different approaches to digital media that they wanted some of that from us. So we bring in speakers twice a month, do free webinars. We have a whole continuing education school where they can get things like that. And then just in 2023, so a year ago now, we acquired a second digital marketing certification called OMCP, or Online Marketing Certified Professionals. They do more around like pay-per-click advertising, search engine optimization, mobile, email, conversion rate optimization. And they have 2 levels of certifications over there. So now we're running both organizations, sister companies right now, helping that whole marketing profession really level up and stand out. It builds confidence and credibility, helps them get new jobs, promotions, land clients, all kinds of great things.
And what was that M&A experience about? No, I'm just kidding.
That one is actually less painless than less painful than the first one. There we go.
Is there a note that you want to share with that, or we can kind of move on?
I think I had some familiarity the second time, right? And so I took a little bit more of an educated approach. And then the person that I purchased from, the former owner of OMCP, really knew what he was doing as well. And so we worked well together as 2 leaders trying to sell. There was no hostile thing. Usually when you hear about M&A stuff, you're thinking about like hostile takeovers and large companies buying it out to dismantle and kill it. That's not what we were doing. It was really a synergy. He wanted to move on to the next phase of his life. He saw the community we'd built with NISM and actually reached out to me via phone call and said, "Hey, I got a crazy question. You want to buy my business?" And I went, we need to talk. So
yeah,
it was good.
Those positive
Very
ones
cool.
usually start more serendipity, whatever. Serendipity. I don't know. I'm just saying the word.
There you go. Alex, got it.
Thank you, Alex. And as opposed to when you're reaching out and things like that. So I'm glad that worked out. How can you work with other marketing agencies, or what services can you partner with other agencies? So in other words, what do agencies tend to reach out to you for?
Yep. Agencies reach out to us for usually two different things. The first one is to get their team certified because they can then speak the same language, right? Right now, what happens in a lot of agencies, they hire somebody that has a various different experience from the person next to them, right? They use different terminology, they value different measurements. So when they go through the certification together as a team, then they have that commonality of understanding, that language that permeates the conversation.
Same
But the second
vocabulary.
thing, yeah, it's super helpful, right? But the second
Absolutely.
thing they come to us for is that it adds credibility to their agency. So especially if they're selling social media management services or digital marketing services, having their teams credentialed, if they have a certain number, and we don't have to get into specifics, but if they have a certain percentage of their team certified, the agency can get a badge as well that says that their agency is certified. It helps convert people because so many business owners have been, I don't want to say duped, but they've been disheartened by the experience they've had in hiring someone in digital marketing, social media, agency or not, because they thought they knew one thing or could help them with one thing and couldn't, right? Certification gives that credibility, that level of understanding that the people here know this and can help you with this.
And
Yeah,
then to
so it's
switch
such
that.
an easy startup
Yeah.
to get into it. So then how do you filter to who do I trust?
Everybody wants to be a digital marketer because, we all use Facebook. And it's like, yeah, but what is your background? Do you understand the business side of this? How do you understand the strategies to communicate effectively with your audience? Do you even know who your audience is? Every real estate agent thinks they're a digital marketer.
True.
And then to switch that question around, and I know you're not like the typical marketing agency that we speak with, but do you ever get requests that aren't in your competency or a service that you provide? And what do you usually, if so, what do you usually outsource to other marketing agencies?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Most people do think we are an agency. They look past the fact that we are an institute and go straight to social media. You know it all. So here I'm going to call you and I want you to do my social. That's usually the request, right? They have a marketing need, a social media management need, or they're hiring for positions. Um, all of those I refer out to our community of certified strategists. So I gather some information from the folks that are looking. What are they looking for? What are the skills that they need? And then I go to my community of social strategists, our certified agencies, if there's appropriate, right? And I'll make those recommendations or referrals through that process. We also have a job board on our website that is there for our community of strategists who might be looking, but it is a nice resource for an agency who's hiring or a company who wants to bring someone in full time. So,
Yep. And ismonline.org.
yeah.
That's the job. Yep.
I could
I just
spend
saw
an,
that. Yeah. It's perfect.
sorry. Yeah, I could spend an entire episode, I think, on just that last question and how you're handling it and everything. Obviously, it's what we're trying to point the community and the podcast to, but I feel bad that we're
I do have a follow up there.
Please.
Given that you're the source of strategy and some clients may naturally go to you to find because you essentially have the resource and know who to point people to. Has there been any discussion around starting a marketplace for to showcase companies or individuals who have gone through the process and gotten certain certifications that may be applicable to one thing that a client may be looking for as opposed to something else?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So a few years ago on our website, we did have a directory where all of the certified strategists could fill in a profile. And if they were looking for work, full-time, part-time contract, stuff like that, what their areas of expertise were. We actually took that off recently. And part of it was because the strategists weren't updating it properly. And often enough. And so people would not feel like they were getting the right service, right? Because they'd go on, they'd email, and it was an old email or something like that. And so we've taken that off for now, but the conversation has come back, right? Like, how do we create a place where we can not only showcase the amazing work that our strategists are doing, but also have and facilitate collaboration, facilitate work opportunities. And what that looks like going forward is yet to come. It might be another form of directory. Right now, we do have some closed groups. So once somebody is certified, there are closed groups where that collaboration is happening behind the scenes. And if I get a request, I'll put it in the closed group, right? So I have a request from somebody outside, I'll put it in the group, and then those who are interested and available can respond, and I can make some educated introductions. But we are thinking about how to make that front facing. But I want to make sure it's a good experience for everybody involved. And that takes a little bit more planning this time than what we had before.
I'm wondering, and this may be an oversimplification of it, but just kind of as a potential version, very clear from your organization is who took what certification and, if they passed or not. Not saying, so if you have the directory as being just, these are the certifications under this organization, number of people certified, for example, and the organization as a whole being potentially certified or not, in those specific areas. And then the rest is potentially a link out to their website with tracking. Could be a beta version to the next,
It really could. It really could. Something simple that just has, these are our certified people, certified agencies, and under the social media strategist, OMCA, OMCP.
In the different categories.
Yeah. And that is definitely the first likely step. So.
Yeah, because I think that you have a great resource there for companies to refer to, especially you're the organization that's certifying these agencies and these professionals, which is a great source to turn to.
Yeah, exactly. They all get a digital badge that they can add to their own profile, but there is a nice component to having it all centrally located on our site because they find us oftentimes before they find the individuals.
Yeah, I think that was a great question because we're trying to do something similar on our side, again, building this community. And I think the issue that we run into is, just because they were on a podcast doesn't mean they're a good firm. And how do we make sure to present that they are not only the right fit, but they're good at what they do? And I think that's something we're battling with now and trying to make it a little bit easier. As we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Yeah, so I would invite folks who are interested in learning more to visit the National Institute's website at nismonline.org or omcp.org. If they want to find me, I am accessible on LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, pretty much everywhere under Radke Jen or Jennifer Radke. So you can find me by my name. I'm fairly easy to find. So I'd encourage that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you who've learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality guest. And as always, thank you for listening. Jen, this was great. We checked off the personal stuff like we talked about right before. And we got, and obviously a lot of that related to kind of business and then dove into the business a little bit. So thank you so much.
It was very fun. Thank you both, Josh and Alex. This was great.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.